Cool. So, Atamari, everyone, and welcome to our second session. So, last time we really just kicked off with understanding about what this is all about. I introduced the Emerging Leaders Pathway. So, as of this week, we're officially into our sessions. We'll start to invite guests, and we have the privilege of having Kiri up front. So, I'm just going to put a little bit of context to it. I'm going to step away and then we'll kick straight into it. So, remember what I said last week is that, part of you being successful as in your pursuit to be a branch manager is your ability to influence, and also not just at the interview, but just across the community. So this is an opportunity of understanding what the directors look for. And Kiri's been through a ton of these interviews and branch manager selections, so she will share some of her perspectives. I remember in terms of the selection process, and we'll do a deep dive into the selection process a bit later on down the track. But essentially, you will go through 2 stages of interview. The first interview is with a panel. Normally, it's the general managers. And then the last interview is with the directors. And so this is your opportunity to ask questions as well to Kiri, and we'll have Peter and Stephen as well later on to understand, what they look for from emerging leaders, future branch managers, and, what branch managers look like over the last 20 years might be different to what they look like in the next 20 years. It's a really good opportunity to just connect. It's fairly informal. So I'll ask some questions, you ask some questions, and then, Kiri, we appreciate your time coming in. This is your last week. It's a busy last week, I'm sure, so really appreciate you being here. So that being said, I'll pass the virtual mic to Kiri.
Great. Thank you, Kenny. We're in, everybody. This is it's really positive to see so many people who want to be leaders in Barfoot and Thompson. So it's really good to see, actually. So yeah, I guess there's a lot of formal books on leadership and what leadership looks like and all that stuff, and you can go off and read that in your own time. But that's not really what today is about. So I just like to, I guess, put it from my point of view. When we've been recruiting, I've been involved in recruitment over 10 years. Even before I was a director, you kind of have a bit of, as a regional manager, you did give some feedback, not as in depth and fulsome as today. What the general managers do, but there's still, you still would give opinions. So I think, firstly, there's no one right look or qualities a leader has in terms of Barfoot and Thompson. Like, everyone's different. So don't sort of model yourself or try to be who you aren't. Like, you have a manager and you look at them and go, well, if I was exactly like that person, I'm going to be a leader. And that's not really how we work, because you're all completely unique individuals. And if I look at different managers, they're all quite different people. So, but underlying, they've got the similar qualities, right? So this is in no particular order, and it's not really a list or anything. It's just like what I just try to think of what comes to mind when we think about what is Barfoot and Thompson, what do the directors look for in a Barfoot and Thompson manager. And I think firstly, we're a family company. Even though we're a large company, we're a family company. So we're looking for people who are really quite empathetic and kind of look at their people in their office as family, not as people, like not resource. Like, I really get a little bit upset when people say, oh, we haven't got the resource to do that. And what they're talking about is we haven't got enough people in IT. And your people are not your resource. They are actual people with feelings and families and hopes and dreams. So I feel that you've got to like people. I think that's really important, that you've got to like people, and you've got to understand people. And some people will say, well, I treat people like I want to be treated. And I don't think that's quite right, because not everyone wants to be treated like you. So you are future leaders, and maybe some of you will be future managers, or are already in almost a management position already. And you got there because you're probably a little bit more ambitious and a little bit more motivated, and you've just got that X factor that your staff or your potential staff don't necessarily have or want. And I think that's one of the qualities, is to understand that everyone's different, and not everyone wants to make $1 million a year. In their heads, of course, they'd like to make $1 million, but they don't actually want to do the work. They're quite happy making 3 sales a year, or being in an admin job and earning a salary that's it's comfortable for them, but it's not necessarily like what you want. So I think you've got to understand that not everyone's different. Everyone is different what they want, and I think it's really good to get to know your people as people. So even if it's just a matter of asking them, what did you do on the weekend, right? I think that's really important, because you want a manager who's interested in you, right? Like, otherwise, why are you there? Why are you working for them? Because you've got goals, hopes, and dreams, and you want your manager to help you. So one thing that successful salespeople kind of struggle with when they become a manager is they don't know how to delegate or how to train people to become a successful salespeople. And they want to they're like a control freak. And so they want to get in there and, oh no, don't do it like that way. Do it this way, do it this way. And you've actually got to learn to step back and let people work it out for themselves. Yes, you can coach them and lead them and train them, but ultimately you've got to teach them how to do it. It's like that whole saying, teach the man to fish and he can feed his family, or show him how to fish and he's just going to catch one fish, and then you're back there again doing the same thing. So I think it's really important to be able to step back as a leader, because you are a leader, not a manager, and let people work it out for themselves. So you can't be a super control freak, because it's just not going to work. Because otherwise you'll never get away from being in the field. Like, you're always going to be having to go out to appraisals and having to close deals. And ultimately we're looking for leaders, not managers. Like, that's what we're looking for. So I think it's quite hard. Like, you've got to, I remember when Rod Robinson, he I think most of you know who he is. He's a general manager, but he also was in Pukekohe office. And when he started Pukekohe office, it was way out on the fringes of Auckland. Like, most people had never been to Pukekohe, and it started at number 48 branch, I think, because it just opened. So it was number 48. And eventually he got to number 1 branch. And, he's managed to build it up so successfully that Nick's taken over, and Nick's done really well as well. And it's still number 1. So, which is amazing for a branch that at the time when Rod was number 1, the average sale price was probably half what the Auckland sale price was. But he said, well, you're basically a servant to your staff. So some of you may feel a little bit uncomfortable about that, because being the boss, traditionally the boss is someone who tells everyone else what to do and sort of sits back and enjoys the fruits of other people's labour, right? A more command and control kind of role. And that's definitely changed. And Rod was probably ahead of his time, because that's probably more modern thinking is you are, you're there, you're in the branch, and yes, you're the branch manager, but you're there to support and help your people, whatever that looks like, right? Sometimes it's an obvious one, like how to get a listing. But otherwise, sometimes it could be something like helping them get through some family issue they've got, or at least referring them to professional help, because everyone's got stuff going on in their life. I think you've really got to believe in yourself. Like, management's quite, being a director, being a manager, being a leader is quite a lonely role. So you might be the buddy in the branch now, and you go out for coffees, and like you're one of the staff. But once you get to being the manager, yes, you can still be friends with people, but you have to you've got to go to be the boss, not so much the buddy, because at sometimes, hopefully not too often, you might have to let people go, or you might have to discipline people. And that can get really, really uncomfortable if you're too close to some of your staff. So this can mean a lot of different things to different people, but I remember my manager, Tony Pratt, one of my first managers, he's passed away now, but he would say when there were staff drinks, when there used to be a lot of staff drinks on a Friday, he would have 1 drink and then he'd go home, right? So it's about, yes, it's great to have fun with your staff, but you've just got to make sure that ultimately you're the boss, and you don't want to be doing inappropriate things or getting drunk in front of your staff or anything like that, right? So because even if your staff won't come to you the next day and say you shouldn't have done that, or whatever it looks like, people know, and people are watching you, right? So you think people are watching you now, you wait till you become a manager, they're going to watch you even more closely, and they won't tell you that they're watching you, but they are. So you just have to be aware of that, and people might talk about you like behind your back, and they won't say anything to your face because you're the boss, but you might lose that respect of your people if you are doing things that you shouldn't be doing as a leader. So I don't want to be negative about stuff, but I think these things, like we've had managers in the past that have done stuff they shouldn't have done, and sometimes it's okay, they bounce back, and other times they're no longer managers, right? So luckily it's a very small amount of people, but you do have to have an even more professional approach to behavior, because you are being watched. And I don't have to go into the whole honesty and integrity stuff. I think that's a given, right? So people do know what you're up to, even though you think they don't. So it's amazing what your staff know about you that you didn't know that they know. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. Okay. I think as a manager leader, you've got to show vulnerability, like that you're human as well, because people can look up to you and think that you're amazing, and you're kind of like this god to some people, and which is kind of crazy, but it's at the end of the day, you're only human, and you're going to have good days and bad days, and it's like anything, right? You have a good day, but you don't want to and then that's great, but you have a bad day, you don't want to burden your staff with all your problems, but you want to say, look, I've just got some personal stuff going on, so I'm not available today, or can we postpone this meeting till tomorrow, kind of thing. I think it's good to show that you're actually a human, not a AI person, because the directors at this point are not looking for AI managers. We're looking for actual real people. So just be human, be yourself. Show a little bit of vulnerability. Tell people about your failures. I think a lot of people will stand up there and tell people about their successes, but often the actual success comes because they've had a lot of failures beforehand, and people really want to hear those stories, because I think that's important, that people see that you've tried something and it doesn't work all the time. Like when I decided what I want to do with my life when I'm 16, I thought I want to be the manager, right? Because it pays, not necessarily Barton & Thompson, but it pays well. So I read all these, like this book here, Habits of Highly Effective People. And I even put the cover seal stuff on it, because obviously read it a few times. So this is before online books and podcasts and things like that, and books like this. But that didn't mean when I applied to be a manager, I would get that job, right? So even when I was working for Barton & Thompson, and I was my first time I tried sales, I only lasted 3 months. I can blame the market. It was hard, but I was younger and I wanted to work in New Zealand for other companies. So I went and worked for Clear Communications, which is now Vodafone, which is now called One. Then I went to Telecom, because I think it was really good for me as a barfoot, working for the family company, to work in New Zealand outside the family company. So my first 3 months in sales was not a great success. But my boss, Grant McKenzie, who's Scott McKenzie's dad, now retired, he took me to Glenfield, and he had faith in me, and I got to the top 20% of salespeople. I only got on the front page once, but I'm proud that I got on the front page once. So, but I was usually on the second page out of, there were about 800, 1,000 salespeople then. But I would apply for branch management positions, and I didn't get them all. The first one I applied for, I didn't get the second one, the third one, the fourth one. I got the seventh one. So I applied 6 times. before. I didn't even get an interview, so we probably didn't do interviews at that stage. So I think it's important to firstly tell your failures to your people as much as your successes, and secondly is don't give up on whatever you're trying to do. So if you're a manager and you are applying for you're applying for a management job and you don't get it the first time, you've kind of got to just go, okay, why didn't I get it? Talk to Kenny, talk to one of the GMs and go, what can I improve on? Don't go into a big sulk and, because people will see that, right? Like, it's important to be resilient about things and go, okay, I didn't get it for whatever reason. I still want to be a manager, or I still want to get a bigger branch than where I am. And I'm going to do some work on myself and then keep reapplying. So that's that one. You've got to make decisions. There's always a decision, and sometimes making a decision means not doing anything, not changing anything. Pam Ursek, she was Epson manager, now retired. She got Epson to number 1 office, and she I remember her saying that as a manager, you've got to be seen to make a decision. You can't be just going around in circles, not making decisions. So sometimes it's like not necessarily in hindsight the right decision, but make the decision. Because the staff they look up to you. They want someone who's decisive and makes decisions. It doesn't mean you have to make a quick decision. Sometimes some decisions might take a bit of thought, could take hours, weeks, days, whatever. But do make a decision. And you've got to get on with dealing with the ugly stuff, like the complaints, that kind of, they call it eat the frog, you've got to do that stuff that you don't want to do. You've just got to do it, suck it up and do it, right? So, and it can be painful, and it is part of being a manager, leader, that you will get complaints and you are the person responsible. Often you can't delegate a complaint to anyone else. You're ultimately, the buck stops at you. But in saying that, though, another secret, not necessarily a secret, or what directors are looking for, is delegation. So we're not looking for people who want to work 12 hours a day as a leader, right? And then burn out after 3 months, or not be available, or the family break up because they never see you. We don't want that person, right? That's not really healthy. We want you to be a manager for 10, 20 years and be successful, that you can provide a great lifestyle for yourself and your family, whatever that looks like, and then retire and have a good life in retirement. So we don't want you to burn out and get stressed and get sick. So there's a real skill of delegating as a manager, and that's not just what I talked about before about coaching salespeople to work by themselves, but also what your strengths and weaknesses are. So delegate what you can delegate. There's some things that a manager you can't delegate. You can't, and I won't talk about those, but there are things you can. So if you have a really good admin person, or 2 or 3 or whatever, depending on the size of your branch, there's a lot of work you can delegate to them. You might have a sales manager. You might be a sales manager, but delegate some work, because you can't do everything yourself. It's just impossible. It's just you'll be basically strung out and hung to dry in 6 months, a year, right? And you'll hate being a manager and wish you're a salesperson again. So and that may not mean delegate to a person, or it might mean use AI, work out, get good systems and processes in place. So I don't know, that's not something I'll go into detail, but everyone's different what they're good at and what they should delegate. So look at doing that. And I think as directors, it's lonely in your branch, and you may not see a director in your branch for unfortunately more than a year, right? So it's about kind of reaching out to people who think, if you are going through a tough spot. I remember I was in Highland Park, and it's back in 2005, and I've only had my second daughter, so I've only got one daughter. I had my baby, and she was 3 months old or 6 months old, I can't remember exactly. But those who are new parents, right? You never get a good night's sleep. Like, you're always tired. Anyway, so we had no sales that week, so it was 0 on the weekly sales. So whereas most other offices around me had at least 1 sale, and so I wasn't obviously I wasn't that happy about it, right? But I remember the local Meadowlands manager, Jim Allnut, he rang me up because he saw that I had no sales. He saw that I had no sales, so he rang me up and took me out for coffee, and we just talked about lots of things, not necessarily real estate, but it just made me feel a lot better, right? So sometimes you've got to reach out or be the reaching out person, and say, look, let's go for a coffee, or let's go, whatever, and be that person who helps other people, but also recognize that sometimes people don't know what you're going through, but we as directors can't read your minds, or the support centre people, Kenny, Rod, Grant, Sam, can't read your mind. So do reach out if you're just having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month. I think you've got to be quite always looking for constant improvement in your office, because if you go there and take over a good branch and then just sort of sit there in the sales role and in the property management business roles in, but you don't actually do much apart from being reactive, then your branch will at some point probably go backwards. And it probably won't be till you wake up one day and go, look at that. And then it will be almost like not too late to fix, but it will take a lot more work than always being proactive and going, well, how can I do a better job as a manager? How can my team be more productive? How can I help them out as people? How can I help them with their hopes and dreams? That's, whatever that looks like. I guess it's probably talking to people, keeping your networks going. You might have a really good network as a salesperson. Because you become a manager in a different part of town, don't stop networking, don't stop. And maybe you've got to start networking with different people. I remember Kevin Lowe, Green Lane, he started networking with the Public Trust. This is probably 10 years ago. He started taking them out for lunches, and it takes a long time, but as a manager, you can't always rely on salespeople to do that. So you might take a salesperson with you, but maybe the introduction might come from you. We've interviewed people from other companies to come and work for us, and then we say, well, has the local manager ever talked to some of your staff? And they say, no. So, and I get it's hard to get people from other companies, but it does happen, not often, but why not start that relationship? It takes a bit of work, and it means being proactive. And don't stop. You're a salesperson, right? So, if you just don't do any prospecting for 3 months, your business will slow down eventually, right? So you've got to keep prospecting as a manager, whatever that looks like. Prospecting, being proactive, keeping going, always look at improving yourself. No such thing as a perfect manager, no such thing as a perfect director, right? We even directors, we go to courses, we get people in to help us out. I've got a business coach. There's probably not going to use them much anymore, but I still probably keep in touch with them just to keep on track. Maybe there's such a thing as a retirement coach. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's important to have someone you can kind of be a sounding board with, but someone who keeps you accountable. So that may be one of our coaches we use already, or maybe someone you have for a personal connection to keep you accountable, because, the directors don't ring up your branch every day and go, what are you up to? Or the general managers don't see you every week. So ultimately, you're kind of responsible to keep yourself on track. So you've got to have a lot of, that self-motivation to make sure you're tracking okay. And maybe it might be having the network of a few colleagues in Bath and Thompson, a few other managers. I know some have, there's, is it the table, Kenny, I think? Managers table. Yeah. So there are networking groups in Bath and Thompson, and I strongly recommend that you do kind of find people that you kind of get along with and are happy to share stuff that you may not share with an entire group of people. What else have I got? Yeah, I think you've got to be a good person, right? And work at Bath and Thompson, and over and above the average. I guess, don't quite know what I'm thinking to say, but we're a wholesome family company, and we kind of want to keep it that way. But we love people with ambition, and it's great when I when I was a regional manager and go into certain branches, and they'd be going, "Oh, I'm going to try this, and I got this," and sometimes people's and they confuse their ambition with their ability, right? But sometimes the ability does eventually catch up. So I think it's exciting to be a manager, that the sky's the limit kind of thing, right? In my opinion. And, you can take a branch. I've seen branches go from number 30, number 40 to being number 1 or in the top 10. I've seen branches go the other way, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to, there's always an excuse not to do something or why you're failing at something, but we don't want to see that as directors. We want to see you succeed, but we know sometimes overnight success can take 5 or 10 years. So we understand that, right? Particularly if you're in a smaller branch or a startup branch, it can take a while. And there's going to be a lot of things outside your control. Like maybe your top salesperson will come to you on a Monday and they're like, "I want to see you." And you're like, "Oh, why do you want to see me for?" And of course, all these things go through your head, and they walk in your office and they shut the door, and you're like, "Oh no, and they say, "Look, I've got a really good offer. I'm going to another brand, or I'm going to another manager, or whatever." And they won't tell you why. They won't probably tell you the real reasons. They might say it's the money. It's like the vendor who says, "I went with Ray White because they gave me a low commission." And maybe it might be that reason, but there could be some other reason. And look, you've got to try not to take it personally. It is a bit of a punch in the guts, but you've kind of got to be the bigger person and go, "Okay, I respect your decision. Once you've worked out you can't change their decision, leave the door open if you want them back." Because they may come back. We have had people who they think the grass is greener and it's not. Or they might be just genuine reasons. They just had enough of being in real estate and they're leaving, right? So, of course, the other thing is there's going to be top people in your office that aren't complying, or they're not fitting in with the culture of the branch, or they're real gorilla or bully in the office. And at some point, you've got to make the decision. You're going to have to let those people go, which isn't easy when you see that all that money walk out the door. But I remember Ian Gray saying, "Well, when I sacked this particular person who was a bully in the branch, he was number 1, but Ian plucked up the courage. He was ex-Mount Eden, to let this person go. And then as soon as he did, all the salespeople came to Ian and said, 'Oh wow, this is so much. Thank God you did that, because that guy was horrible to me.'" And yet the salespeople had never said that to Ian before. And then someone else, number 2 or 3, kind of rose up and replaced the revenue of number 1. It didn't happen overnight, but it did. So don't be scared to let someone go if they don't fit in with the culture of the branch. You don't necessarily have to like or be friends with all your salespeople or your staff, but they've got to fit in with the branch and respect their colleagues. And in saying that, and a positive thing is that if someone wants to be a manager, you should support them in their goal of being a manager. Don't try and discourage them because they're the number 1 person and the number 2 person in the branch. Like, support people who are ambitious, because they recognise that. And I think that's really important. Again, like Ian Gray, he's seen more than 10 top salespeople go off and be managers. And I think that's really important, because there will be some people who in your office that want your job. Yeah. So that's I think that's probably enough off the top of my head I can think about. So yeah, maybe it's question time now, Kenny. What do you want to do now?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kiri. I'll just open the floor for questions. So I invite you to actually come on mic and ask the question, but if you want, feel free to put in the chat as well. But I invite you to actually come in to the Zoom and ask a question.
Well, if I go first.
Go, Bob.
Cool. So, Karen, you've obviously appointed a lot of managers over the years. Can you just let us know, what do you think? You've seen people do really well, seen people do not so well. What would be the things that you've seen that those people do when they go into a branch, that those people do really well, and on the other side, you know, that maybe didn't do so well, and what can we learn from that, you know, side of it?
I think when you first get a branch is to go there and just put your feet under the desk and get to know the staff, which is not done in a group setting, right? Like it's like, and it may not be a formal one-on-one. It might be just jump in the car with them or take them out to coffee and just get to know them as people. And then I think at some point you've got to be, if things need to be changed, make changes. Like you might have got feedback, perhaps that say the property management staff or the property manager has been there for a long time and is not really going to make, is in their comfort zone and is not going to improve the branch. In fact, there's some negative connotations there. So you've got to make sure that you, and say the general manager has said, well, you've got to move this person on. You've got to move them on to another company or to another career, but you've got to do it. Like if you get feedback from the general manager about some things in the branch that need to be changed, you should do it. So not wait till that person leaves 2 years later, right? Because we've had the benefit of knowing the history of the branch. So, and you can seek help to do, you know, like that's what we're here for, is to seek help. How do I do that, right? But the general managers or whoever, your business coach, will give you advice for a reason, so do it. So that, I guess that's another one as what not to do is just not do anything. Other things I've seen people do is like that. It was a number one salesperson, and he went in there, and he was a great salesperson, but he was a bit of a lone wolf, and he just couldn't. He just couldn't get on with the people in the office, and yeah, I don't know why, but he just couldn't. And people kind of leaving because he was just like, it's my way or the highway. This is what you do. This is how you do it. And if you don't do it, you know, you're a loser, kind of thing. You know, I don't think he said that, right, but I think that's what people thought, because he was just a dictator, I suppose. So I just don't think you can do that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Kiri. I'm Rohit. Just wanted to ask you, when people come for an interview for branch managers, what is it that the directors say, wow, that is impressive? That's one single trait you look for, you know, over the years, which you say, wow, that was good, impressive.
Well, energy and enthusiasm.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Confidence.
Yeah.
Like the interview is one part of the process, right? But it's a really important part. So don't come into the interview going, oh, I think I don't know this and I don't understand that, and I don't know if I can do it. You know, there's a whole lot of fake it till you make it kind of thing. But if you haven't done an interview for a long time, practice on, you know, somebody else first. So they know, the general managers will give you some tips because they know what kind of questions are going to be answered. So I think it's really important in the interview to exude confidence and energy, and that's fun. That's one thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Kiri.
Hey, what if the successful managers have done to attract talent to Barfoot and Thompson? We all want to grow, and we're looking for that balance. We just don't want numbers. We want people that will be successful. What have they done that have really stood out?
What have the directors done, or what has?
No, the managers have done.
Oh, the managers. Okay. So I think first, when you go into a branch, everyone knows you've moved into the branch. Well, not everyone does. Probably the other companies may or may not. They only know probably if you've left another brand to go to Barfoot and Thompson. So generally, salespeople live in their own world and don't really know the movements of Barfoot and Thompson managers. They probably don't even read. If they're not interested in management, they probably don't read those emails, right? So let alone people from other brands. So I think you get into a branch, you get your feet under the desk, and you start making a difference, and that will get out there, and people will see the difference you've made, and then you become a branch. If you weren't already, become a branch of attraction. Okay. And then people can see that you're successful, and most people want to work for successful people, right? Or be in an office with lots of other successful people. So I know when Grant Sykes started at Dannemora, that was a brand new branch, a startup, right? Dannemora was kind of on the fringes of botany, and he was working in Beachlands, which is even more remote back 15, 20 years ago, right? So he was kind of, nobody really knew who he was, and he definitely talked to people from other companies, but they didn't want to come over until they saw he was doing positive things, right? So and eventually he got Sue Zhao, and she came over and she became number one, and she really helped his branch, because generally you have to take on a lot of new people when you're opening a new branch. But she was an experienced person and she's really successful. But it took some time before he got her, because he showed to the world, I guess, that he was doing good things in his branch.
Good. Thank you.
We got time for one more question, team, if someone wants to check in there.
I think it's important to be yourself, like whatever your management style is. You can look at your manager but I think everyone's got a different management style. Some people are like the extrovert manager who's like takes over the room and tells stories, and everyone graduates to that person. And other people are kind of a little bit strange, but they attract different people to their branch and get their own tribe around them. Not necessarily like them, but they respect that manager, and they can be really successful. So don't feel that, oh my God, I'm not that person, or I can never be like that guy or that girl. I shouldn't be a manager, or I'm not going to be as successful as, because we do see a lot of different personality types and different people as managers, and they can be just as successful as kind of the stereotype of a successful manager leader, like guru person who gets up on stage and does TED Talks or whatever, extrovert. You can be an introvert and be a very successful manager.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Kiri. I'm realizing as we did this first session now that giving a director the full 45 minutes is the right way to go, because there's so much wisdom in there. So definitely do that going forward. But I really appreciate you sharing. And for me, one thing that emerged for me as you were talking is that idea of relying on each other, peer network. And I look at this room, or virtual room, so to say, in front of me, and I'm going, well, these are the people, you are the people that will be the managers, going forward. And so if you look at the screen now, if you see who else is in this room, it's quite likely that one of them will be that person that's going to take you out to coffee, like, when Kiri was taken out. So yeah, think about not just that network when you become a branch member, but this is your peer network now. And we're going to do this every fortnight, so hopefully get to know each other a bit more as well. But otherwise, thank you very much. We'll do this again in a fortnight and a fortnight again. But for now, remember there's another session after this. So if you haven't got your branch managers papers, then there's an information session straight after this at 2:15. That's in a different Google Meet. So you need to go to that meeting and then come in on that. And if you've already done your branch managers papers, then you weren't invited to that because you don't need to. So don't worry about it. But if you are, then I'll see you in that meeting. But otherwise, for the rest of you all, I will see you in a fortnight, same time online. And Kiri, once again, thank you for making time for us last week. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Kenny. It's really enjoyable. I like to wish everyone all the best in their leadership journey.
Thank you, Kiri.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, both of you.
Bye.
Thank you, Kiri.
Thank you.